All right, thanks, Prati. Um, Coming up next is a series of different talks about different use cases of NFC and some case studies. Our first guest today is Dr. John Rogers from Northwestern University. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, and I've been really eagerly awaiting your presentation, so I won't spend any time introducing you. I'll just go ahead and let you go. So, Dr. Rogers, good morning.
Great, thank you. It's great to be here and to share some of the things that we've been doing with NFC, kind of at the level of academic research, but in some cases, really focusing on product development as well. I'll give you some examples of both types of activities that we've been pursuing in my group over the last 5 to 7 years or so. So if you go to the next slide, I'm here at Northwestern University. My core expertise is in material science and engineering, although I'm part of an institute that's designed to facilitate work at the boundaries between engineering science and medical science. So what I'll share with you today involves a host of technologies that designed to interface with the human body to monitor physiological health parameters and basically sort of statistics and metrics associated with environmental exposures as well. And in those kinds of applications, I guess you could think about them as next generation wearables. There are all sorts of advantages in operating in a wireless and battery free manner. And for that reason, NFC technology has been a good match toward the sort of requirements that we're trying to satisfy around these new classes of healthcare related technologies that interface with the body at different locations, in some cases on the skin. I'll show you examples where we interface onto the fingernail, but a whole host of implantable devices as well that I won't have time to cover today. So if you go to the next slide, we're fundamentally an academic group. Like I said, we have activities here on our engineering campus in Evanston, but we have a platform for launching these technologies into the broader medical community in downtown Chicago through interactions that we have with our medical school, which is downtown, but also across the entire medical complex, including a large rehabilitation hospital also. So we really develop new sensors, new NFC-based technologies at the level of the engineering, and then we can prototype them and scale them to deploy in meaningful statistical levels onto human subjects across a range of conditions, primarily focused on beginning of life health challenges, so maternal, fetal, neonatal, pediatric health, and end of life health challenges, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, stroke survivors, and so on. So if you go to the next slide, we're fundamentally an academic group, as I've mentioned a couple of times, and so we publish in the open peer-reviewed literature everything that we do, pretty much. But we do have goals beyond filling journals with papers. We would like to develop technologies that can be commercialized and scaled and deployed to have meaningful impact on the way that we care for patients. And so we have a number of productive engagements with industry sponsors of our research, and in many cases we team with these companies to launch products based on technologies that we've developed here in our academic group. So if you go to the next slide, I'll step you through then some specific examples just to give you a feel for the sorts of things that we're doing. And for people who are listening to the presentation, you can feel free to reach out to me by email if you'd like to follow up on any of these opportunities or others that may leverage some of the capabilities that we've developed over the years. So let me start with maybe the most challenging, but also perhaps the most impactful study and technology that we've been working on during this period of time, and that is in real-time wireless battery-free monitoring of vital signs associated with premature babies who are in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit. And so if you look at the image on the left, that's the care that's provided to these patients as it exists today. So the requirements here are for 24/7 full vital signs monitoring. So all vital signs need to be monitored continuously. Please go back to the previous slide. And at clinical grade levels of quality, and that's done with wired-based interfaces that connect skin contacting biosensors to external boxes of data acquisition electronics. As you imagine, that sort of approach is highly non-ideal for this class of patient. The skin is not very well developed, so application and removal of these tapes on a clinical cycle is typically 12 or 24 hours, can lead to damage of the skin, the wires, the bulk, the physical tethering, frustrates natural movements of the babies, and also prevents the kind of frequent skin-to-skin contact between these babies and their parents that's known to have a very therapeutic benefit on the development at this stage of their lives. And so starting maybe 7 years ago, we decided that a much better approach might be to develop thin, flexible, and even stretchable skin-like devices that could operate in a wireless manner without requirements for batteries to replace what's done today with this highly non-ideal engineering solution with something that would be much more compatible with this class of patient. And so if you go to the next slide, what we're able to do is actually achieve that goal with a pair of battery-free wireless devices that rely on NFC technology. One designed to mount on the chest, and that's what you're seeing draped across the fingers of the hand in this case. And another device that's time synchronized with that first one that mounts on a limb, either the hand or the foot, designed to measure blood oxygenation. So the device on the chest is recording continuous ECG data. As you can see in this picture, this baby is in the PICU, slightly larger, older babies in this part of the hospital, but also benefiting from wireless monitoring capabilities. You can see the device on the chest. It's measuring ECG and skin temperature, and from that, those data streams continuously recorded through a long-range reader. So we have an antenna mounted in the base of the chair in this case. It's delivering power to this pair of devices and also serving as a two-way wireless communication link. So it's continuously capturing data. The chest unit gives respiration rate, heart rate variability, core body temperature, and then you can see the device mounted on the foot there. It's optically measuring blood oxygenation. And so these are some of the things. I don't know who's controlling the slides, but please don't advance until I say advance. So this is this is what it looks like, and you reproduce everything that's measured with those wire-based systems in an approach that's much more compatible with these patients. So this is just an example of some things that we're doing in clinical grade hospital monitoring using NFC technology. It's purely diagnostic. You might think about possible therapeutic uses of these technologies, maybe provided through a vibrohaptic interface to the skin to alert patients to conditions that may be life-threatening. And so with that in mind, we've also exploited NFC technology, if you go to the next slide, to attempt to create sort of a haptic complement to the video and audio cues that currently serve as the basis for virtual and augmented reality experiences. And so thinking about the metaverse and how do you go beyond the eyes and the ears to create a more immersive experience. And so could you imagine these kind of NFC-based wireless battery-free interfaces as skin-like devices to activate tactile receptors on the surface of the skin, and not just at the fingertips or the hands, but completely across the entire body? And could you do that? Might be an interesting goal to contemplate. And so this is another area where NFC technology, battery-free wireless operation, has been very important. If you go to the next slide, it's just an exploded view schematic illustration of how these devices work. So we have an array of vibrohaptic actuators. These are mechanical actuators interfaced directly to the skin and then connected to a backplane of electronics that allows for programmed real-time spatiotemporal control of the activation of those haptic actuators to create an artificial sensation of touch. And that backplane of electronics is wireless, battery-free, leveraging NFC technology. The entire thing is put together using these design rules that allow for these skin interfaces. And so this is a schematic illustration of how that works. So NFC is delivering power to these devices, and it's also providing a two-way wireless communication link between a touch screen and the control electronics for operating the array of vibrohaptic actuators with very low latencies, typically in the range of 10 to 20 milliseconds. So almost a real-time sort of experience, converting touch on the screen of a computer to an artificial sense of touch directly onto the skin. If you go to the next slide, you might imagine many different kinds of applications for this technology, not only in medicine, and go ahead to go to the next slide. So we have a graphical user interface to allow for operation of this device, not only medical applications, but as I mentioned, applications in the metaverse and maybe in just remote interaction. So for example, adding a sensation of touch to the kind of video and audio call that we're having right now might be interesting. And so we demonstrated in this technology in various regimes of application, including social media, as I just mentioned. So if you go to the next slide, I'll give you a couple of other examples of our application of NFC technology. So the other nice thing about this sort of technology is it's well suited to extreme miniaturization. So we've been able to reduce the size of the coil antennas to dimensions that allow for mounting on unusual parts of the body, and in particular ultra thin millimeter scale NFC technology to allow for mounting on the fingernails, for example, as an interesting alternative to the skin as a mounting location, due to the absence of sweat glands, nerve endings, the slow growth rates, and the mechanically stable sort of platform that the fingernail represents. So if you go to the next slide, we've been able to develop that kind of technology. And in this particular example, we're using the fingernail as an optical window for measuring, using an optical process, blood oxygenation, pulse rate, and respiration rate through engagement, optical engagement with the capillary beds that exist directly beneath the fingernail. So you think of this as sort of an optical interface. It's a very stable, mechanically reliable interface that can persist for many months without irritation and without needing to remove and remount the device. And so this is a very compact system. This is using an advanced TI NFC SoC to control a pair of LEDs, flashing them on and off out of sequence, and then reading the response of a photodetector that's measuring backscattered light. And so then again, these can be operated, in a battery-free manner, and we can, couple power and establish wireless links through NFC technology. If you go to the next slide, either embedded, for example, in a mouse or underneath a table to now allow continuous vital signs monitoring through this miniaturized type of device platform. So I'll give you one more example. If you go to the next slide, one that's actually been commercialized and scaled up. And this was an opportunity that was brought to us by L'Oreal and their subsidiary La Roche-Posay. And so they have a big business in artificial fingernails. They were attracted to this idea of electronically instrumented fingernails and asked us specifically whether we could develop an NFC battery-free device for measuring UV exposure. They have a big business in sunscreen. And so we were able to put together an accumulation mode sensor that can measure exposure to ultraviolet light, UVA and UVB. And so here, essentially the solar exposure is providing the power source. So we have a photodetector that's activated by exposure to UV light. It produces a current output that over time charges up a supercapacitor, and the voltage across that supercapacitor is a direct measurement of the accumulated UV exposure dose. And we can use NFC technology to measure the voltage across that supercapacitor. Using a calibration factor, we convert that voltage to UV exposure dose and store that information in a smartphone. So the beauty of this device is that it's always on. It doesn't require a battery. There's no switch to activate the device. It operates in a battery-free manner. It's highly miniaturized. It's wireless. It's completely solid state and fully encapsulated. So it's a device that lasts forever, but also simultaneously provides very high accuracy information around UV exposure dose. And the idea is that this information could guide customer behaviors around healthy and safe exposure to the sun, and also guide them toward purchase of La Roche-Posay sunscreen. So if you go to the next slide, the fingernail embodiment was attractive initially, but some initial market studies led to the conclusion that probably half of your potential market would opt out of a device that requires mounting on the fingernail. So although that is a possibility, and it's what we described when we launched this device in 2018, the ultimate commercial embodiment was in the form of a small form factor device that could clip onto clothing or eyewear or other personal garments or jewelry. So if you go to the next slide, this was the device that was launched into all Apple stores is available through the La Roche-Posay website. It's about the size of an M&M candy, and it attaches to the body using this kind of clip, but exploiting all of the underlying technology that I just described: NFC, battery-free, always-on operation. And this was made available commercially through a small startup that we have called Wearify to provide the technology solution. So that was scaled up and sold at large volumes and with a companion app. So if you go to the next slide, I think this is kind of a concluding comment, just kind of what's coming out of the lab most recently. This is a device designed to measure skin hydration. Another request from our partners at L'Oreal, being able to measure the hydration state of the skin is something that's important to their customer base, specifically customers of their moisturizing creams. And so again, a battery-free NFC-based device where we deliver power from the phone to activate a heater element that then enables measurements of thermal transport characteristics of the skin, which directly correlate to the hydration level of the skin, the water content of the skin. So it's a very thin, flexible device that can mount on essentially any body location. And then with a swipe of the phone, you're able to activate the device, perform the measurement, and determine local levels of skin hydration, again, of importance to customers of L'Oreal's sunscreen. So hopefully this gives you some ideas of different possibilities. That's the end of my presentation. If you go to the final slide, it's just an acknowledgement again of the kind of technologies that we've been working on: skin interfaced, stretchable, thin devices, battery-free, and ultra miniaturized wireless systems as well, opening up additional sets of opportunities. So the final slide, if you advance, is just another acknowledgement of the work that we're conducting here at Northwestern in the context of this Institute for Bioelectronics, where NFC technologies are playing a very prominent role. So thank you again for the invitation to speak in this forum, and I'd be happy to field questions or interests around joint development efforts if you'd like to contact me by email. Thank you.